Hello everyone, welcome back to No Hold Time. We are still here in Vegas and we have another amazing guest, and Brian is here with me. Warren Morris, Director of Product focused on Gen AI.
You got it.
At Mosaicx.
At Mosaicx. You got it.
We need to come up with a term, a name for people who
Mosaicxian? I don't like that one.
Yeah,
we'll have to figure that one out.
Jake, think about that one.
List.
Thank you for joining us. We're really excited, not just here at CCW, but you recently started working with us at Mosaicx, and we've heard amazing things about you. But now we've actually seen you start to do some really cool things because you're here now. So thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. As I told you earlier, this is my first podcast, so it's a big deal for me.
It's a big deal for us.
Thanks.
This is, I think, after Becky, you're employee number 2, which is a good thing to be behind.
That's a lucky number.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Also, you'll know this. We point a lot.
We do point a lot. That's a main comment often in this. It's weird hands and movements.
Yeah.
Okay.
You live in Louisville.
I do.
Are you originally from Louisville? Have you been there for a long time?
Yes, and yes. I am originally from Louisville, and I have been there a long time. I did move away for about 8 years and lived in New York, which was awesome. And then moved back. So I've been back in Louisville for 8 years.
Cool.
Yeah.
Where in New York did you live?
Brooklyn.
Nice.
Yes.
We just had someone from Brooklyn on our podcast yesterday, and we asked them this. Maybe you don't like pizza, but if you have a favorite pizza place.
Who doesn't like pizza?
Well, you can't, not
You never know.
You can't assume, huh?
That's right.
My favorite pizza place when I was in Brooklyn was a little spot called Luigi's on 4th Avenue, 20th Street, around there. Yeah, it's
Cool.
delicious.
Same question I asked him yesterday. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
I mean, to each their own. I prefer my pizza without pineapple.
I won't be mad at that.
So I think the pizza question is cool for New Yorkers because everyone has their own favorite place. I'll sort of compare it to people in Chicago with Italian beef. Like you have like your own neighborhood Italian beef place, and like it's good to just try new things. So back to Louisville. I went to school in Indiana, so
okay.
not far. And I had some good friends that are from Louisville, and I was told that you say it Louisville, but I know that you say it differently. So
How do you think I say it?
you say I don't pronounce the I.
Uh-oh.
Mine is just Louisville. Yours is like
I want to hear you try to
Louisville.
say
I
it the
wanna
way
hear- I gotta
I
hear
say it.
You gotta.
Louisville.
I'm not.
I don't know. Did you say it differently than what
Louisville.
I was taught? But apparently the answer is that you do you.
Well, I don't know if people say that, but there's a whole thing in Louisville with like 4 or 5 different pronunciations. There are T-shirts.
Yeah.
There's like, I think at the airport, there's like 4 or 5 pronunciations on a banner somewhere. And I do think that people there say it, but I was just corrected last night on my pronunciation of Louisville by someone from Bowling Green, which is another city in Kentucky. Yeah, she was like, "Oh no, that's not how you say it. You say Louisville." I was like, "Well, I am from there, but."
Yeah. Moral of the story is that people say it a little bit differently. Not everyone says it the same.
I think so. Depending maybe on where you are or where you're from within Louisville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Just since getting to know you, I've learned that you have a background in education, which I get really excited about. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I went to school for art and got a degree in 2D studios, which is like flat surface stuff. So painting, drawing, printmaking, although I was never a good painter. And then after that, I got that degree. I was like, well, what now? So then I got a degree in teaching. And so I got a master's in art education, certified to teach K through 12, moved to New York, and was pretty freaked out by the idea of teaching in New York after having come from Louisville.
Yeah.
And so I got into educational nonprofits up there and eventually made my way to an educational nonprofit in environmental ed with Brooklyn Botanic Garden, Prospect Park Alliance, and a high school that they created. So then I did environmental education programming, and manage this partnership between these three institutions, which was fantastic. Just an awesome job.
Yeah, really cool.
So how in the world did you get in technology then?
Yeah, I have actually been asked that question like 3 or 4 times just in the last 2 or 3 days here. And it's one of my favorite stories to tell, really, because I still learn so much from it, from this whole like experience. So about 8 years ago or so, I had taken some time off after having a couple of kiddos, and also wonderful experience. Got to be a mom for a couple of years with them, and then decided I was going to go back to work. And had just really not made connections in Louisville. So I hadn't been here for 8 years at that point. Didn't really have connections anymore. Had a friend who ended up really being kind of a mentor to me, who had just gotten a UX. She'd gone through a UX, so user experience program design. She had an anthropology background. She's brilliant person in general. And she said to me, well, what are you interested in? What do you like doing? I was like, well, I really love problem solving. And I really love, being resourceful and being creative and using creativity in my work and like thinking deeply about things. And she was like, well, I really think you might like this tech job, this role, product manager. And so I really just kind of started learning more about it. I got an official kind of mentor in a product role. She was also fantastic. And then I had some people just really take a chance on me is really what happened. Cool. And I don't know what they were, either crazy or I don't know. I don't know what they saw. Maybe they just needed to fill a seat, but I doubt
that.
Well,
knowing you for the last 3 weeks, they didn't just fill a job.
My interview process went like, do you have any experience with C#? No. Do you have any experience with JSON? No. Do you have any experience with HTML? No. Okay, well, I think we're going to hire you. So it ended up, terrifying, but it just ended up opening this world for me that has been such a great fit. And all those things that I described, that using creativity and problem solving, I get to use that all the time. And I have just loved it the last 7-8 years.
Well, maybe the inexperience in those things is what they wanted, right? Like sometimes you hire the same kind of people that have the same kind of experience and notions, and bringing in a fresh mind that had different ideas is maybe what they were looking for.
That's how that was my spin on it. I said, you don't want somebody who has all these biases, all these like old ways of doing things. I'm fresh, like we can fill this with whatever we want. And they bought it. So yeah,
awesome.
Here we are.
Awesome. And I know that you worked at Apris along with some of our other Mosaicx colleagues. We'll figure out what that name is on how to call them Mosaicx. Or can you tell us about your time and what you did at Apris? Because I really like what you guys did. Yeah,
it was fantastic. So I got to work on a product called Vine, which is victim information and notification every day. What was so interesting to me about it and what really drew me to it was, I had this background in nonprofit, really having like a mission-driven kind of career so far. And here was a corporation that still had this mission kind of centric approach. And it just seemed so unique. So we provided notifications for people who were impacted by crime. You can register it's a free service. Anybody in the country can register, vinelink.com, and you get notified when the person you've registered to get notifications about when there's movement. So if they're released, and that's the most critical because you can be in issues of safety. You can also get information about court dates, and so this really grew to serving kind of a broad community. So yes, victims, and it like victim was part of it. But we ended up doing a lot of research. We did a lot of UX. So I got to work with this mentor of mine who I spoke of earlier. And she introduced all these fantastic human-centered design, which I know you're interested in talking about. Human-centered design practices, UX research. We learned so much about the whole like victim space and really, maybe preferences to not even use the word victim, use survivor instead. And so we got to kind of play this role in this safe experience for people We use a trauma-informed approach, so I got to learn all about that, which was really, really great. A really great practice and something that I still use. And it was a fantastic team. It was great experience. Yeah.
It's awesome. I just love companies that have that like mission-driven background. You know about the work we do with Vibrant, and they're similar. Yes, you mentioned the human-centered design. I sat in on a conversation you had with the team. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah, sure. So really it is just an approach to problem solving. It's a creative, human centered or user centered approach to problem solving. So it involves empathy. That's the first step, which means listening usually. So asking people questions about their experience, really getting to the real reason, the real root behind whatever they're experiencing. Empathizing a lot. It typically involves some prototyping. So there's an element of experimentation with it. There's not this kind of push to get things right on the very first time. There's an expectation instead that I'm going to iterate on this. I'm going to put it in front of these people who I've spoken with and who I've empathized with and get their impressions on it, and then iterate and make it better before this goes out. And so I think really what's at the root of that is that connection, that human connection, and really understanding that what you're creating starts with a person and starts with a problem, a pain point, whatever you want to call it, but that you really are solving problems for people, not building software,
I think it's interesting because that's why I think you fit in really well at Mosaicx. We do that too. Like a lot of times we'll take a group of folks like us, you included, to a contact center and sit right down in the front lines and talk to people and listen to phone calls and hear what happens, because you can build such a unique product set and solution set to a problem. But if you just guess what the problem is, it doesn't do any good. You have to hear it, feel it, impact you. I think that's a great approach. I was lucky enough to go, one of our clients, big pharmacy notification business. Mm-hmm. So their goal was to try to reduce delete rates, which means you have to pick up your prescription before a certain date, otherwise it goes back on stock. And so they brought in a guy.
Those make me anxious.
I've talked about. Thank you. Good. It's our fault. There's a guy named Dan O'Reilly. I've talked about him in a previous podcast before. Have you ever heard Dan before? Mm-mm. He's a New York guy. Crazy. He had a big fire as a kid, so he has only half a beard. It's the wildest look in the world, but he's a brilliant dude. From Duke. He's got a university group that does a lot of human-centric design pieces. And for those of you who have boys in the household, many of us have not hit the toilet very well as kids and as bars and as whatever. So they took this step. It just reminded me of this funny story. They took this project on. They didn't know what they were going to do. The human problem was mess all over the floor. And what they went to, and they said, all right, let's go figure out what it means, why it's a problem, whatever. They stood in bathrooms and observed people for hours. And they said, I don't understand what happens. The net of it was they made stickers about this big and put in the back of urinals and toilets with targets, and it cut down the mess by 85%, because what they figured out was people get distracted and they need something to do, and that was what did it. So anyway, I just thought it was funny because human-centered design is essentially that. It's figuring out really what the problem is, trying things and going and fit it. So it's great that was something you focused on.
Yeah. I thought maybe you were going to say they gamified it. And so hitting a target, maybe a prize. Points. Yeah, points went up or something.
One of those big stuffed animals at the carnival.
I probably just have a Vegas mindset. That's my problem. Yeah. Thinking in terms of points and bright lights.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why Mosaicx?
Yeah.
How did we get you here?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's interesting, you talked about shadowing at a call center, and that was something that, so we had, with Vine, we had a 24/7 call center. Mm-hmm. I got to shadow them fairly often, every 6 months or so. It was a bit of I think it was a bit of a burden on them when we did it. So, we tried to, as much as they appreciated it, it took time and energy. And And for call center representatives, that's a role that requires a lot of time and energy anyway. So a lot of just mental capacity is spent on the calls. You know, there's a lot of difficult calls that come in. And so when I heard about Mosaicx, I looked it up and like, oh, call center, like this is something that that is such an interesting field because it's something that everybody experiences. Like I think I had just had an interaction with a call center with a hotel. So I called a hotel and tried to make some changes to a reservation and ended up having a very good experience with it, which is not always the call center experience. But it's very interesting to me, and to me, like there are many problems to solve within that space. It's not insurance. It's not. I mean, it might. Vine was so mission centric. Maybe a call center isn't quite on that same level, but I think because it's so varied, they do reach almost everyone, and those experiences are felt and impacted by almost everyone. So to me, it's not too far of a leap, I guess, to say this is important, important work.
Yeah.
So your title is focused on Gen AI.
Yeah.
It's the term of the last 5 years. What does that mean to you, and where do you start when you walk into something like that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I always try to start with just learning. So I have been trying to learn about the company. I've been trying to learn about the team, learn what our goals are as a company. And, honestly, I think I'm starting where I would with anything else, which is really just what are we trying to accomplish? What are we what outcomes are we trying to drive here? What problems are we trying to solve? I'm not wanting to come in and just kind of sprinkle Gen AI on everything or say that it's the solution and where can we put it? But I think that starting with what are the opportunities, like what are the places for improvement? I think Gen AI is fascinating. So it's a really interesting tool, and we have a really great team of speech scientists who are working on it. I'm so impressed with them already, and I'm enjoying working with them. But they will be the first ones to tell you, like, this Gen AI has a specific use. If you try to use it for something else, it's not going to do what you want it to do.
Yeah.
So I think really, like I said, like starting with what problems are out there, what are the most impactful ones, and what is the business trying to achieve, what's our strategy, and how do those problems and solving those problems kind of align.
And so you've gotten to know Mosaicx 360, our product set.
A little, I'm working on it.
Fair enough. You were talking before the call or before the podcast.
Yeah.
How do you see it fitting into our product set? And maybe, and I realize, like I said, you're just starting, but where, from initial perspective, where do you see it maybe starting with us?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that right now what we're working on is an FAQ. So we're kind of dubbing it right now Expert Answer, just to kind of distinguish this application of Gen AI and this use of the tool to this FAQ. We want to start there. I think that that's a great use case. There are a lot of there's a lot of information, there's a lot of content on websites, customer websites and even our own website that takes a long time to find. It just takes, it's pages and pages, and then current FAQs have, return more links that you then have to go through, and how long does it take you? And so thinking about how we can put generative AI on an FAQ, and then moving on to like agent assist. These are the places where there is success already in these like agent assist tools. So I think that's a good next step. I mean, generative call systems are very intriguing. This idea that you aren't even going through an IVA or an IVR, but you are, you're calling, you're saying what your problem is, and you're kind of organically getting an answer. I think that's some distance away still. There are many small details to kind of go through before we get there, but that's kind of where I see us going. And then analytics, so analyzing the data that we have, starting with the data itself. What do we have? And I think we probably have a lot of really interesting data that we can start applying some layers of analytics to start extracting those, those real nuggets. I don't know,
Yeah.
the really interesting things or the patterns, the trends, that really help reveal some areas, again, opportunities for, I would say, optimization.
Yeah.
And that's not just Gen AI. That's probably just like regular AI
Sure. Yeah, sure.
as well. But yeah, that's many things. I really do think that, and kind of what I'm learning about this space is really that Gen AI is huge, and it's on everybody's mind. It's on all the conference sessions. But a lot of the improvements and the gains that we'll see will be incremental. They might not be huge, but they amount to something much larger when you put them together.
So you mentioned conference sessions. We're in Vegas.
Yeah.
Contact Center Week, Customer Contact Week. I've said that wrong every single episode at this point. Anything you brought out of today's sessions or the last couple of days of doing this? What any nuggets of wisdom?
Yeah.
Or insights?
Yeah. Well, yesterday we had a really great session, our very first customer advisory board meeting. That was fantastic. It was such a great experience. It was really great. Again, like from a human-centered design approach, really great to talk to customers face to face, to learn, what they would say are their biggest pain points, their challenges that they're facing, to hear, the different kind of perspectives on Gen AI as we talk about, we focus on that in even our customer advisory board. And then today I was in a session, again, there was Gen AI was not in the title, but that's what we were talking about. And the session was very well done. There was an activity, which is always great. People groan about it, but then really that's where you get to talk to the person next to you and hear about those challenges. So I got to listen to a woman describe she worked in retail. I think she was the head of a call center. I didn't catch which retail organization, but we did exchange contact info. But she described a lot of challenges with her group, and she talked about return policies and these being like very rigid policies, but that then when people get an actual agent on the phone and then get to a tier 2, a tier 3, or wherever, as when they escalate, they get a different response, and that's why people keep opting out of the chat, asking for that agent. As we joke, like agent, zero. They're doing that because they get a different outcome, so it's reinforced, which I think is really interesting. She talked about not being able to predict people's next order. And I thought, well, can we predict people's next order? If we know their past orders, could we use that information to make a prediction about the next thing they're going to purchase? And then there was some conversation around utilizing Gen AI and the anxieties that people have, and mostly it was around chatbots. So using Gen AI for chat, and should we tell people how are people going to feel about knowing that they're talking to a chatbot? Are they is this a good experience or a bad one? And there was one person said, oh, we must be transparent. We have to say this is a bot. Yeah. And there was a counter argument that I thought was really interesting. And they had some data, but I don't know where the data came from. They said that they found that by not disclosing that they were talking to a bot. This doesn't mean that the person didn't know, because they probably did know.
Sure.
But there was no disclaimer, this is a chatbot. The CSAT score was higher than when they did. Now, I don't know if they did A/B testing. I don't know how they came up with that. But I think that is interesting, and something to explore.
To find our own data on.
Yeah.
You mentioned that customer advisory board, and I was a part of that. Yeah. And you shared some really good stats on employees leveraging Gen AI. Yeah. Can you tell us about that? Because I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I'm glad you remember that. Yes. So some of the stuff that I've been, kind of reading about and trying to understand, especially as we engage with our customers and we talk about Gen AI with our customers, and we get different receptions. I did a roundtable at CCW St. Louis a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about, I think it was titled The AI Imperative. And this title came up, I think, before I was asked to do this panel. But when I looked it up, as we all do, what is it? What is Google it? And AI imperative turns out is a pretty frequently used term. So it's like, well, what is imperative about? Is AI imperative? And do people agree with that? So really trying to tease that out in this roundtable. And there was a lot of hesitancy. There were people were talking about, oh, well, we're doing this. We're in research and development. Oh, we're exploring. So there's a lot of like planning and thinking about it, but no real policies, no real broad rollouts. There were a couple of companies that maybe were starting to use it, mostly AI for like analytics, or they were using it for RFP responses, which I think is a great use case for it. But it was interesting because they did not seem to know how their employees were using it, which is pretty common. Yeah. A lot of CEOs are hesitant. They're kind of slow rolling it because there's a lot of risk. There's a lot of uncertainty. We don't, are you writing security policies? How do we even do it? Do we have the staff? Do we have the knowledge, training? Do our people know how to do it? But there are some statistics coming out among knowledge workers that I think it was something like 72% of knowledge workers are using Gen AI in their work. Of those 72, 75%, about 50% are not telling anybody that they're using it, which is a bit of a concern. There's security concerns. What information are they putting out, into ChatGPT? Yeah. And then there's also concerns because you're not sharing that knowledge and that what they're learning about Gen AI. What the third statistic here that's interesting, and as I said yesterday, numbers generally do not stick with me, so it's these. I'm going to hang on to these three. But of these 72% of knowledge workers who are using Gen AI in their jobs, 83% like their jobs better. They are finding more job satisfaction, which I think is just such an interesting stat, because you think about, why do we use Gen AI? What are we doing with it? And we think about the ways that we can productize it, but really using it internally as time save, as efficiency gains, those are great places to start. And this idea that Gen AI is going to be a bottom up, revolution, that's a big word, but
it'd be interesting to see that same stat and ask those same 83% people if they think that their job is on the line because of Gen AI.
That came up in the session today too. Yeah. And I would say probably some percent would say yes. Yeah. I can't remember a fourth stat though. 3 is my max. So I can't.
The first time I ever did ChatGPT, I was sitting next to a home builder contractor friend of mine. And they go, "Hey, check this thing out. Let me see what it does." He goes, I'm like, tell me what a quote would look like for you. He goes, all right, I want a house. I need 3 bedrooms. I need this. I go, all right. So I wrote it in there. I said, give me this house. And it wrote a 10-page quote form with like furnishings and finished work and this and that. And he goes, that would have took me 6 hours, and it's better than I did. Yeah. And it's a computer bot. But he's like, I'm going to use that because it's going to save me time. Yeah.
Well, and it really, something else that I've come across recently that I think is just such great advice. Actually, I think it was at the Google Next conference. I heard this. Someone said, when you're thinking about AI and you're thinking about the applications of it, don't automate the fun stuff. Automate the tedious stuff so that workers have more time for the fun stuff. And I think that's where that job satisfaction comes from. That you're automating the tedious stuff that just like, I haven't found a way yet to say, hey, make me a PowerPoint presentation. But when we get there,
and Microsoft guys told me to go try it on Copilot. He said, it'll change my life. I can't figure it out. I think it's a security block.
As soon as this ends, I'm going to go check it out.
I think it's a security block in Mosaicx. I have a curveball for you. Pointing again. Of all the Gen AI funny, goofy stories, do you have a favorite that's like the one you go to?
Well, there's the one about the pizza someone asked like my pizza fell apart or something, and then
ingredients,
and they asked him to like put it back together with glue or something like that.
I still like the lawyer that went to court with a bunch of like made up cases and got basically disbarred. There's a couple of good plays too. Do you happen to have a favorite Gen AI funny story?
I mean, I think it's pretty funny. One of the ones I heard where I guess somebody convinced Toyota to give them a free truck or something.
It was like for $1 or something.
$1.
I also think that was the same story that I heard. They go,
one.
You should go buy a Chevy. Like on Toyota's website or something. I don't remember if it was Toyota. It was one of those other ones. But it's like you should. I think it was a Ford.
So first recommended the competition and then said, "Just take this.
Just have it for a
here.
buck. Yeah.
Take this piece of junk."
Being an art person, have you tried any of the generative AI art applications
I
out
have.
there?
Not for a little while. I tried about I guess about 6 months ago. I was trying to design a cover, a book cover, and it was impressive in the way that it returned. It was I could tell it was trying. It was trying really hard.
They're bad.
Yeah, but it was pretty bad. I mean, the hands were kind of in the wrong place, and they might not have had the right number of fingers. And
coming on the elbow.
Some weird kind of. It was like it got 80% there, and then with the other 20%, it just was like, I don't know, but just maybe make it this color over
I found that they don't spell it very much right. Most of the if you want to slide with titles in it, I've asked it to do that. It spells basic words with like extra letters.
Yes.
It's really bad.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. Yeah.
So I have 2 daughters. One of them really, really likes to draw, and so normally what I did is like she would do a prompt and then it would come out and it would be silly, but then that would give her an idea of how to then draw her own art. And that was a good use for us.
Yeah.
One of the things we do on the podcast is ask people to share a good or bad customer experience. Do you have one you could share with us?
I do. We're going to pivot hard here away from tech and Gen AI. Yes, and I was prepared for this question. I don't know what I would have on the fly, what I would have thought of. But this didn't take me very long to think of. So good and bad customer experience. And this is actually a juxtaposition.
Okay.
So I recently went for a massage at a company. I guess I can say it. I went for a massage at Massage Envy. I don't get massages very often. It was a gift. It was very generous. But it had been years, but I was pretty excited about it. So I went there and I think I was on time. I'm pretty sure. If I wasn't, I was like a minute late, but more or less on time. And then you have to be on time for these. So I had to wait a little bit before they got to me. And then I had to go back into another little waiting room. And it was very sterile. It felt, not like clean sterile. Like it just was kind of like
doctor's
empty.
office.
But not like a clean one. And I had to sit there and wait with some other people for a while. And they had like their music playing and they're talking on their phones and stuff. So there wasn't this like feeling of relaxation. And then I hear somebody walking around and I swear like doors are opening and closing. I hear like the bathroom, like toilet flushing. And then I swear I hear somebody burping in the hallway. And I turned around and it was one of the employees who worked there. And I was just like, what am I doing? Because the last time I had a massage was at like a spa. Mm-hmm. And it was this most amazing, beautiful, like everything was hushed. There was music playing. There was like smells, wonderful. The employees were not making any sounds like that. And even like the room itself, like I get in the room and there's a clock on the wall. And in my head, I'm thinking like, why is there a clock? I don't want to look at a clock. No. Yeah. I want to forget. I want to forget what time it is. I want to forget what day it is. I don't want to be thinking like, oh, this massage only has 10 minutes left. So like all these little details, that I kept thinking about. And then the massage actually ended like 5 minutes early. So my massage therapist was late and then she ended early. And it was really, this is the kind of thing like that I'm privileged to get to pick apart because I got to have a massage. But I just felt like this is not what I want.
It's a service industry.
This
service industry.
This is not what I want. This did not make me feel relaxed. Now maybe people get massages for like a physical therapy, in which case it's a purely like working out.
Yeah,
the
but
tension,
still, you shouldn't show up late and quit early. At
Yes.
minimum, right?
Yes, at a minimum, you shouldn't show up late and quit early. Yeah, but yeah, I was I felt like I was analyzing that customer experience quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the positive side is just like anticipating your needs. When you go to like some really nice place that you don't even say what you want. They just bring you things that you're delighted to have.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think about those experiences a lot when I think about like software design and, that idea of delight and what it means to meet expectations, what it means to exceed expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have to wrap shortly.
Okay.
Running out of time. Is there anything you want to ask us? You're new on the team.
Yeah. How can we help you?
What can we do?
Oh, wow. Wow. Well,
Infamous podcast host.
infamous.
Infamous.
That's what I mean.
Well, I mean, you've already given me really the best gift, which is my first
First
podcast.
podcast is done.
I think I would just really love to join you on some sales calls, like customer calls, whenever you have them. I would love to speak with customers more, and I would love to listen to customers more. Let me say that.
Okay.
And I can just be a fly on the wall. I really don't have to say or ask anything. I might like pass you a note, say, ask them this. But yeah, that's the first thing that comes to mind. That would be great.
Deal.
Yeah.
We'd love to
Yeah,
have
I
you.
can do that. We've already done that. We'll continue to do it.
Yeah.
And speak all you want because you're awesome.
Okay.
You're a great addition to the
Yeah,
team.
we get tired of
Thank
listening
you.
to us anyway, so you can speak up, please.
Yeah. It's the
Well, I
same.
was kind of lying. Yeah, anyone who knows me very well would
Yeah.
never believe that I would be quiet. So
Well, it's the same approach to the job interview, right? Like they're tired of listening to the
Yeah.
same old thing from us. They
Yeah.
want someone with a fresh mind and new
Yeah.
ideas. So they
Yeah.
probably prefer
Okay.
to talk to you.
great. What's the deal then?
Sounds good. Brian's going to close this out. He's our closer.
Thank you for coming. This was amazing. Welcome to the team.
Thanks.
For all of our 3 listeners, thanks again. If you want to see more episodes, there's been a lot of great stuff out of the Vegas visit with us. Go to mosaicx.com/podcast. Subscribe, like on YouTube, Spotify, and we'll see you guys next time.
Spotify me.
Thanks.
Your podcast, however you need a podcast.
This is my first podcast.
Ever?
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah. Thanks.
Nice.
Yeah. Congrats to you
That's awesome.
For having you.
for having me on my first podcast.
Congrats to
This might be the
you.
third
Yeah.
person.
Congrats to you on being in the presence of me as well. She just
You
said.
laughing
And I accept
over
that.
there?
Talk about